My name is Claire, and I'm 45 years old. Right now, I'm standing under a canopy of white and gold balloons, clapping for my daughter Emily as she walks across the stage to accept her diploma. The sun is unforgiving, and my cheeks feel flushed, probably from the heat, probably from the tears I'm swallowing. Emily is radiant in her deep blue gown, her tassel swaying with every step. Today should have been perfect. So, before you listen, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Where are you watching from today? Drop your location in the comments. Now, let's ease into the story together. Emily beams, locks eyes with me, and waves. I wave back, my heart aching in a way I can't explain yet. My husband, Nathan, is beside me, shifting his weight from foot to foot, his jaw tight. He's been like this all morning, distant, irritated, like just being here is a chore. When Emily returns to her seat, the ceremony shifts into long speeches and applause. Nathan leans toward me, voice low but cutting. I'm leaving you. I blink. What? I'm leaving, after today. I must have misheard. Nathan, what are you talking about? I've already packed my things. I'll be gone by the time you get back. I want to scream, but all I can do is sit still, paralyzed by his calmness. We are surrounded by proud parents, smiling families, and here I am, being discarded like an afterthought. The final applause breaks out. People cheer. I force a smile for Emily and keep clapping. My hands sting from how hard I'm slapping them together. Every beat feels like it's trying to keep me grounded, just until we get through this. We head out to the courtyard where families are taking pictures. Emily insists we all pose together. Nathan stands behind me, his hand on my shoulder like everything is normal. The camera flashes. I remember thinking, this photo will haunt me. When we finally pull away in our separate cars, Emily with her friends, me and Nathan in stiff silence. I keep glancing at him. He's humming. Actually humming. Why now, I ask, my voice barely above a whisper. I didn't want to ruin her day, he says, not even looking at me. Are you kidding me? You just told me you're leaving. You think that doesn't ruin her day? I told you, Claire, not her. I don't answer. I'm too busy trying not to crash into the median. We get home. He heads straight for the guest room where his suitcase is already zipped and waiting. I see that the closet's been cleared. His shoes, his cologne, even the stupid shaving kit he never actually used, gone. You had this planned, I murmur. He nods like he's confirming a grocery list. I didn't want to fight, not today, he says. That's when I realize he thinks he's doing this gracefully. It's nearly 9 p.m. when Emily finally comes home, her hair tousled from the wind, cheeks flushed with laughter. The second she walks in, she senses the tension. What's going on, she asks, setting down her purse. Nathan steps forward and I panic. Don't, I say sharply, not tonight. He hesitates. Emily's eyes go wide. What is happening? I sigh. We'll talk about it tomorrow. Nathan gives me a hard look but says nothing. He goes to bed, or rather, to the guest room. I stay awake all night. My phone is blowing up, congratulatory messages, graduation photos, relatives asking when the party is. And there I am, replaying his words in my head like a broken cassette. I'm leaving you. The next morning, Emily corners me in the kitchen. Are you two getting a divorce? I hesitate too long. Her face crumples. Are you serious? I nod slowly. He told me yesterday, right after the ceremony. She stares at me like I'm lying. Are you joking? I wish I was. And then she does something I didn't expect. She doesn't cry, she doesn't scream, she laughs. It's a cold, hollow laugh. So he really couldn't wait? Not even a full day? I reach out to her, but she pulls back. Tell me the truth, Mom. Is there someone else? I don't want to answer, because the truth is, I don't know yet. But deep in my gut, something's been off for months. I've seen the late-night texts, the locked phone, the cologne he only wears to the gym. I just never had proof. Until that night. I got a message from an unknown number. It was a photo. Nathan with a woman at dinner holding hands. The timestamp, the night before our daughter's prom. I sat there frozen, staring at that photo like it might change if I blinked enough times. It didn't. Nathan was smiling, really smiling, in a way I hadn't seen in years. And the woman across from him, blonde, maybe early 30s, wore the kind of smug expression you only see on someone who thinks they've won. I enlarged the image and squinted. The restaurant looked familiar. It was the bistro downtown, the one Nathan and I used to go to for anniversaries, back when we still celebrated things like that. I texted back, "Who is this?" No reply. My fingers trembled as I set my phone down. I stared at the wall like it could offer answers, but deep down, I already knew. Nathan didn't just fall out of love. He had someone else waiting for him. The next morning, I waited until Emily left to meet friends before I confronted him. He was packing toiletries into his duffel bag, like he was heading out for a weekend getaway. I stood in the doorway and asked calmly, "Who is she?" He froze, just for a second, but that's all I needed. "I don't know what you're talking about," he said. I laughed. "Don't insult me, Nathan. I have a photo. You were out with her the night before prom." He sighed, like I was inconveniencing him with my heartbreak. "It's not what you think." "Really? Because it looks like you've been cheating on me and planning your exit while I was organizing our daughter's graduation." He zipped the bag and stood up. "Her name is Sophie, and yes, we've been seeing each other, but I was going to tell you, I was telling you." "At her graduation?" I shot back. "You chose her graduation to end a 20-year marriage?" He rolled his eyes, and I wanted to slap him. I didn't want to lie anymore. "No," I said. "You just wanted to rewrite yourself as a noble man, walking away from a loveless marriage without ever being the villain." He walked past me without another word. Later that day, Emily found out, and not from me. Apparently, Sophie was at the graduation. I didn't even notice her, probably because I was too busy sobbing inside my own body. But Emily did. She saw her standing alone in the back, taking photos of Nathan. She thought it was odd, but assumed it was a friend of his from work. It wasn't until she overheard two people whispering behind the photo booth, "That's his girlfriend," that she connected the dots. She came home shaking. Was that her? That woman in the red dress? That was her, wasn't it? I nodded, unable to lie. Emily covered her mouth and just kept repeating, "I can't believe he brought her to my graduation." And I swear something in her broke right then. The thing about betrayal is, it's never just one wound. It's 1,000 little ones that bleed in places no one can see. And watching your child realize her father is not the man she thought he was, that's its own kind of hell. That evening, I finally texted the mystery number back again. "Why did you send me that photo?" This time, the reply came fast. "You deserve to know the truth. I thought he already told you. I'm sorry." I stared at it for a while, then asked, "Are you Sophie?" "Yes." I had to reread it 3 times. She wasn't just some stranger trying to stir drama. She was her, the woman Nathan left me for, the woman he brought to our daughter's graduation like she was just another guest. A thought flashed across my mind, uninvited but loud. Was this her way of marking her territory? I wanted to scream, throw something, call her names I can't even say aloud. But instead, I did nothing. I closed my phone, got up, and made dinner. Because sometimes, survival looks like pretending your heart isn't being dragged behind a moving car. But that night, once the house was quiet, I did something I hadn't done in a long time. I cried. Not the kind of crying that comes with sobs or wailing, no. This was the silent kind. The kind where your body folds in on itself, and you just lie there, clutching your stomach because it physically hurts to breathe. The next day, Nathan was gone. He left a note. It read, "Claire, I hope one day you'll understand. I never meant to hurt you. I wish you the best." I crumpled it and tossed it in the trash. Wish me the best. He had torn through our life like a tornado, and now he was wishing me sunshine. Emily barely spoke that morning. She didn't ask where he went. She didn't cry. She just made toast and ate in silence. When she left for her part-time job, I called my sister. And the moment I heard her voice, I broke down all over again. "Come over," she said, "right now." I did. She poured me coffee, handed me a blanket, and let me unravel. For the first time in what felt like years, I said everything. About the late nights, the distance, the way he stopped laughing at my jokes, how he flinched when I touched him, how I blamed myself for being too boring, too predictable. My sister didn't try to fix anything, she just listened. "You're not boring," she said. "You were just loyal to a man who wasn't." And I swear, those words stitched something back together in me. That's when I realized I had spent so long holding the marriage together with my bare hands that I never noticed he'd already let go. After that night, everything felt quieter, not peaceful, just emptier. You don't realize how much space someone takes up in your world until they're gone, even if they were already emotionally absent long before their body followed suit. But that didn't mean the pain left with Nathan. If anything, it moved in deeper, nestled itself in the places I used to reserve for love. Still, I had to confront him again, not for revenge, not even for closure, just for clarity. A week later, I texted him. "We need to talk, come by, alone." To my surprise, he agreed. No arguing, no avoiding, just a simple, "Okay, Saturday." Saturday came, and so did he, wearing a polo shirt and jeans like it was just another errand. I hated how familiar he looked, like the past 20 years hadn't just imploded. We sat at the kitchen table, the same one we picked out when Emily started kindergarten. He glanced around the house like he missed it. "You redecorated?" he asked. I shook my head. "No, it just looks different without you in it." He smiled awkwardly, and I fought the urge to slap it off his face. "I don't want to fight," he said before I could speak. "I just want you to know this wasn't easy." I laughed. "You mean sneaking around behind my back? Bringing your girlfriend to our daughter's graduation?" "No, I imagine that took real effort." He looked ashamed for the first time in weeks. "Sophie wasn't supposed to come. She just showed up. She wanted to see it for herself." "You mean she wanted to see me?" He didn't deny it. I folded my arms. "So, why did you do it? Was it her smile? Her youth? Did she make you feel like a man again?" Nathan sighed and leaned back. "No, it wasn't about her. Not really. It was about me. I felt like I didn't matter anymore. You were always focused on Emily, on work, on fixing everything. I felt invisible." Those words stung more than I care to admit, because there was truth buried in them. I had become laser-focused on being the glue that held everything together. Somewhere along the way, I stopped looking at Nathan like a husband and started seeing him as another responsibility. But still, "You could have said something," I said. "I tried." "No," I corrected. "You cheated. That wasn't communication. That was cowardice dressed in convenience." He opened his mouth, but I cut him off. "I gave you my best years, Nathan. I made a life with you, and you decided I wasn't worth the truth." He lowered his eyes. "I know." There was silence for a long time. Then he said something I wasn't expecting. "She's pregnant." The room tilted. I had to grip the edge of the table to keep from falling through the floor. "I'm sorry," he added quickly. "I didn't mean for it to happen." "No," I whispered. "You never mean for betrayal to happen, but you let it." He said nothing, just sat there, waiting for me to explode. But I didn't. I stood up, walked to the window, and stared out at the garden we'd once planted together. The roses were blooming, mocking me. "She'll never be a mother to Emily," I said softly. "You understand that, right?" He nodded. "And if she tries to be, I will destroy you both." He looked shocked. Good. I wanted him to finally feel something. After he left, I cried again, but not out of sadness. It was something else this time, something colder. A grief mixed with relief. He was no longer mine to fix. That night, Emily came home late from a friend's place. Her eyes were puffy, and she dropped her bag with a heavy thud. "He told me," she said without preamble, "about the baby." I froze. "I'm so sorry." She shrugged. "Whatever. I hope it cries all night and throws up on his stupid shoes." I smiled despite myself. She flopped on the couch beside me and said, "It's weird. I always thought you two were solid. Like, you'd bicker, sure, but you were us. You were home." "I thought that too," I said, until I realized home shouldn't feel like walking on eggshells. We sat in silence for a while. Then she reached over and took my hand. "I'm proud of you, Mom." And I burst into tears. Because for so long, I had felt like a failure, like I hadn't been enough of a wife or strong enough to save what we had. But in that moment, holding my daughter's hand, hearing those words, I realized something I hadn't dared to believe. I had been enough, he just wasn't worthy of it. And slowly, that truth began to sew itself into my skin. Not all at once, but stitch by stitch, breath by breath, I started to believe I could live without him, that I deserved to. The days that followed were heavy, not in the obvious way. There were no dramatic outbursts, no smashed plates or late-night screaming fits, just a kind of emotional fog, like someone had drained the color out of everything familiar. Emily began avoiding questions from her friends. People started asking if Nathan and I were on a break. I let them think whatever they wanted. Rumors are easier to manage than reality sometimes. But inside, Emily was a storm barely held together by sheer will. One evening, I found her on the porch, sitting alone, arms folded tightly across her chest. I brought out a mug of tea and joined her. "I keep thinking," she said quietly, "about all the little moments, you know? Like how he always tied my shoelaces too tight, or how he used to pretend to lose at chess just to let me win." I nodded. "Those things were real, honey. They were." "But now," she whispered, "they just feel fake. Like, how can someone who did all that be the same person who cheated and lied?" That question, right there, it gutted me, because I had asked myself that same thing 100 times. And the truth, there's no satisfying answer. "Because people are complicated," I said. "Because sometimes love is real, and so is betrayal. They can live in the same person." She looked at me like she wanted to believe that, but it didn't settle the way she needed. Later that night, Nathan's sister Linda called me. She and I had never been especially close, but we were civil, polite. I almost didn't pick up. "Claire," she said, "I had no idea about the affair, about Sophie. I'm so sorry." Something in her voice cracked, and I knew she meant it. "I don't expect you to take sides," I said. "I already have," she replied without hesitation. What Nathan did was selfish and cruel. And bringing her to Emily's graduation, that's not just betrayal, that's psychological warfare. I laughed bitterly. "Tell that to him." She hesitated. "He's spiraling, Claire. He thought he was walking into this glamorous new life with a younger woman and a clean slate. But the guilt's catching up to him." I didn't say anything. I didn't want to admit that part of me felt vindicated. "He misses Emily," she added. Then maybe he should have thought about that before detonating our lives. We hung up shortly after, but the conversation stayed with me. It reminded me that healing wasn't just about moving on. It was about reclaiming your story before someone else writes it for you. That weekend, I sat down with Emily and showed her the party invitation I'd been working on. Her eyes widened. "You still want to have a graduation party?" "Of course," I said. "You earned it. This is your milestone, not his scandal." She bit her lip. "What if people ask about Dad?" "Then we tell them the truth without shame." She was quiet for a moment, then she smiled. It wasn't a big smile, but it was genuine. "I'd like that." So we planned it together. We picked out decorations, ordered catering, even printed a giant photo collage of Emily through the years, minus any of Nathan's face. I'll admit, that part was petty, but I didn't care. On the day of the party, the house buzzed with music and laughter. Friends arrived bearing gifts and stories. The backyard shimmered with fairy lights. For the first time in what felt like forever, our home felt warm again. Emily wore a white dress and greeted everyone with grace far beyond her age. I watched her hug guests, pose for pictures, and laugh in a way that reminded me of who she used to be before all this. Then I saw him. Nathan. He was standing by the gate, wearing a button-down shirt, holding a small box, eyes scanning the crowd nervously. He hadn't RSVP'd, of course not. Emily saw him too. Her smile faltered. She glanced at me, and I nodded. Her face steeled over like armor locking into place. He approached slowly. People parted like waves, unsure of what to say. "Hey," he said, trying to smile. Emily crossed her arms. You weren't invited. I just wanted to stop by, drop off a gift. She raised an eyebrow. You could have mailed it. I wanted to see you. Her voice was calm but ice cold. You've seen me, now go. I stepped forward to back her up, but I didn't need to. She was holding her ground like a fortress. Emily, please. She cut him off. You don't get to make this about you. You made your choice. Now go be a father to your new child. People nearby went silent. The music kept playing, but the atmosphere shifted. Nathan blinked, visibly shaken. Can we talk privately? No, she said. We're done talking. He looked at me then, as if expecting support. I told you, I said softly. She's not yours to hurt anymore. Nathan stood there a few seconds longer. Then, without another word, he turned and left. It wasn't the dramatic screaming match I had imagined. It was quiet, controlled, but far more powerful. Because this time, we held the power. After Nathan left the party, the silence he left behind didn't linger long. Music swelled back up, conversations resumed, and Emily, God, she shined, like nothing had just happened. But I knew better. I could see it in the way her hands trembled slightly when she poured herself a soda, or how her laugh always came a beat too late. After everyone had gone home, she found me on the back steps with my shoes off and a glass of wine in hand. Did I go too far? She asked, curling beside me. I wrapped an arm around her. You didn't go far enough. She chuckled, but there was no humor in it. He looked, I don't know, scared, sad, like he didn't expect me to be angry. People who hurt others always want to be seen as the victim, I said. He wanted you to forgive him so he wouldn't have to feel the weight of what he did. There was a pause. Then she said, well, I hope it crushes him. And I didn't correct her. I didn't give her some moralizing speech about compassion or healing. Because sometimes, especially at 17, you're allowed to feel the raw burn of betrayal. You're allowed to not be ready to forgive. That night, I sat in my room, looking through old photo albums. I flipped through wedding photos, beach vacations, Halloween costumes with Emily in hand-sewn princess gowns. Nathan used to smile with his whole face. I used to believe he loved me with his whole heart. And maybe, for a while, he did. But love isn't just feelings, it's choices, and he had made his. I could still remember the moment I realized I was done grieving him. Not the man he became, but the man I used to know. It came the next morning when I was making pancakes. Emily was playing music in the kitchen, something upbeat and slightly annoying, and I was humming along despite myself. I flipped the pancake, looked around, and I didn't miss him. Not even a little. I missed the idea of him, the man I thought he was. But the actual Nathan, the man who brought his mistress to our daughter's graduation and handed me divorce papers like a casual memo? No, that man had no place here. That afternoon, I got a call from Mark, Nathan's longtime best friend. I nearly declined it, but answered out of morbid curiosity. Claire, he said, I just wanted to say I had no idea what was going on. If I had known. You didn't know he was cheating? I suspected something, he admitted. But I thought it was just midlife crisis junk. You know, gym memberships, new cologne, weird behavior. I didn't think he'd actually cheat, let alone with someone like her. Sophie, I corrected. You can say her name. He sighed. He told me about the baby. He's freaking out. I'm sure he is. He's not handling this well. That's not my problem anymore, Mark. I know, he hesitated. I've never seen him like this. He's unraveling. A part of me felt a small flicker of pity. Not because I wanted him back, God, no. But because it's sad watching someone self-destruct after building a fantasy that collapses under reality. But I wasn't his safety net anymore. That job expired the minute he chose Sophie over us. I hope he gets help, I said. But my daughter and I, we're rebuilding without him. After we hung up, I looked around the house again, and I realized, for the first time, I wasn't surrounded by ruins. I was surrounded by the beginning of something new. Emily and I had started going on walks together, just little routes around the neighborhood, listening to birds or venting about work, or talking about whatever show she was into that week. One day she said, "You seem lighter." I thought about that. I think I am. You know what I realized? She added. He didn't just cheat on you, he cheated on us. He walked out on me too. That stayed with me, because it was true. Nathan's betrayal wasn't just about romance, it was about family. And family? That's the one bond you don't break without consequences. Emily started therapy a few weeks later. She asked for it on her own, which I was proud of. I went too. We were healing together, side by side, as mother and daughter. And through it all, Sophie never reached out again. No apology, no explanation. Which was fine. Because I didn't need closure from someone who thought her happiness came at the expense of mine. My closure was this: waking up each day, choosing myself, choosing peace, choosing to raise my daughter in a home without secrets or silences or side glances that held unspoken blame. One evening, as we watched a movie on the couch, Emily leaned over and said, "You know, he's going to regret it forever." "I know," I replied. And I meant it. Because eventually, the glow of new love fades. Diapers don't care how young and fun your partner is. Screaming babies don't care how rebellious it felt to burn down your family. And someday, when Nathan is pacing the floor at 3 a.m., exhausted and alone, he'll remember the woman who made blueberry pancakes every Sunday, the daughter who used to wait at the door just to hug him when he came home from work. And he'll know. He threw it away. The summer stretched on like a quiet sigh. Our home, once filled with the constant undercurrent of tension, now held silence, not the painful kind, but the kind that feels like healing. Emily and I developed new routines, new traditions. Every Saturday morning, we'd visit the same farmer's market, just the two of us. We'd get fresh strawberries, still warm from the sun, and I'd let her pick out a bouquet of wildflowers. It became our thing. It was during one of those trips that Emily said something that surprised me. "I want to write him a letter." I blinked. "To your father?" She nodded, gently twisting the stems of the flowers in her hand. "Not to send, just to say the things I never got to." I nodded. "That's a good idea." She looked at me. "You should write one too." I didn't answer right away. The truth is, I had written hundreds of imaginary letters to Nathan in my mind. Some filled with rage, others with heartbreak, a few with nothing but silence, just blank pages representing all the things I would never say. But now I was starting to feel like I didn't need to write him anything. Instead, I wrote to myself. A letter from Claire, the woman who thought she couldn't live without him. To Claire, the woman who now breathed easier knowing he was gone. It went something like this. "Dear Claire, you are not unlovable. You are not replaceable. You are not small just because someone else couldn't hold space for your brilliance. You survived the storm. You built a home from the wreckage. You didn't lose everything. You reclaimed yourself. And that, my dear, is the real miracle. With love, you." I never showed it to anyone, just tucked it away in a drawer where I keep the things that matter only to me. A few weeks later, Linda invited me out for coffee. I hadn't seen her since the party, but we'd exchanged a few supportive texts. When I arrived, she hugged me like I was family, not the kind you're born into, but the kind you choose. "He's miserable," she said after we sat down. I didn't need to ask who she meant. "I visited him last weekend. Their place is a mess. He's barely sleeping. The baby's due next month, and Sophie is not what he expected." I raised an eyebrow. "What do you mean?" She thought she was getting this doting, stable guy. But Nathan without control? Nathan without the structure you gave him? He's flailing. I sipped my coffee. You know, I used to believe I failed him, that if I'd just been more attentive, more adventurous, maybe he wouldn't have left. Linda leaned forward. "Claire, you didn't lose him. He lost you. And he's finally starting to realize that." It should have made me feel triumphant, but instead I just felt free. Not in the petty I won way, in the real way, in the I finally don't care what he thinks way. And that was everything. Emily started college classes that fall. She chose to commute, at least for the first year, so we could stay close. I was glad. Part of me still needed to see her every day. We'd become more than mother and daughter. We were survivors of the same earthquake. One night, as we sat on the patio watching the leaves start to turn, she asked, "Do you think you'll ever date again?" I smiled. "Maybe, when I'm ready." What would he have to be like? Kind, I said instantly. Patient. Someone who listens. Someone who doesn't need to be the center of every room, just the corner I want to be in. She grinned. That's oddly poetic. I laughed. I've had time to think. And I had. I'd thought about what it means to love someone and still lose them. What it means to forgive, not just them, but yourself. And most of all, what it means to rebuild when you're standing on nothing but ashes. One morning, months later, a letter came in the mail. It was from Nathan. The envelope was thin, no return address. I opened it. It said, Claire, I was wrong about everything, about you, about us. I've made a mess I can't clean up, and I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I hope one day you'll find it anyway. Please tell Emily I love her, even if she won't speak to me. Nathan. I didn't cry, I didn't get angry, I didn't even reply. Because there's a certain peace that comes when you no longer feel the need to participate in someone else's healing. When you realize that the apology isn't for you, it's a step they take for themselves. I set the letter down, made myself a cup of tea, and sat by the window as the autumn sun poured in. That was the day I knew for sure I had healed. Not all at once, not perfectly, but enough. Enough to smile again, to hope again, to imagine a future not defined by what he left behind, but by what I chose to carry forward. By winter, the rhythm of our new life had become second nature. I'd started a new job, nothing fancy, just part-time work at a local gallery. But it gave me something Nathan never did. Peace. The gallery had a warm charm, all exposed brick and soft jazz, with walls full of paintings from local artists. I loved the quiet hush of it, the smell of fresh canvas and coffee. For the first time in years, I wasn't managing chaos. I was curating beauty. One afternoon, as I was helping a customer select a frame, I felt a strange flicker in my chest. Not pain, not grief, just a calm awareness of my own strength. I had rebuilt this version of myself from the ground up. I had lost a marriage, lost the illusion of safety, but I had gained something more powerful. I had gained myself. Emily noticed the change too. You smile more now, she told me one night as we folded laundry together. Do I? Yeah, it's not that tight smile you used to do when Dad said something rude at dinner. It's real, soft. I like it. That hit me harder than I expected, because it reminded me how much she saw, how much she always saw, even when she was younger. Kids may not always understand what's going on, but they feel it. And she had felt every cold silence, every fake laugh, every dinner that felt like walking a tightrope. You deserve to feel safe at home, I told her. I do now, she said. We both do. That was the night I realized I had done something remarkable. I hadn't just survived. I hadn't just healed. I had protected our peace. There's a kind of victory in that, one Nathan will never understand. We never heard back from him after the letter. Emily didn't respond, and neither did I. Some would call that cruel, but to us, it was closure. Because when someone shows you they're willing to burn everything down without looking back, you don't rebuild for them, you rebuild without them. And that's what we did. On New Year's Eve, we hosted a small gathering, just a few friends, some neighbors, my sister and her husband. We played board games, drank sparkling cider, and lit sparklers in the backyard. Nothing grand, but it was joyful. At midnight, as the countdown hit 1, Emily hugged me and whispered, "This is the best New Year's I've ever had." And I believed her. Because she wasn't standing between two feuding parents anymore. She wasn't watching her father lie, and her mother break under the weight of pretending it was fine. She was free. We both were. That night, after everyone had gone and the house was quiet again, I lit a single candle on the kitchen table. I poured a glass of wine and sat down, notebook in hand. I didn't journal every day like I used to, but tonight felt significant, like I was writing the prologue to a new chapter. Here's what I wrote. You don't always get the apology. You don't always get the justice. Sometimes all you get is the chance to begin again. And if you're brave enough, that's all you need. And I was brave. The next morning, I got a message from Linda. She had become something of a quiet ally during all this. one of the only people who could acknowledge Nathan's failures without trying to excuse them. He's moved out of Sophie's place, the message read. Staying with a friend for now. It's a mess. I didn't reply. I didn't even feel satisfaction. Just a soft detachment, like hearing news about a distant acquaintance. Because that's all he was now. A man I used to know, a man who used to be part of my life, but not anymore. Sophie had her baby apparently, a boy. Emily didn't ask about him, and I didn't bring it up. That wasn't our story to carry. And that's the thing I learned through all of this. We get to choose what burdens we carry, what stories we continue, what cycles we break. I could have let bitterness write my future. I could have let betrayal define me. But instead, I chose peace. I chose joy. I chose me. It didn't happen overnight. Healing isn't a straight line. There were setbacks, moments where I almost caved, almost texted him, almost questioned myself. But every time I came back to this truth. The man who walks out on his family isn't the man who gets to define your worth. You do. I do. Emily does. We write the next chapter, and ours, it's already beautiful. Spring arrived like an exhale, slow, warm, and quietly hopeful. The trees outside our house began to bud again, green creeping back onto bare branches. And something about it felt poetic, like nature was mirroring our own healing. The old version of our life had died, but something softer, sturdier, was growing in its place. One Sunday morning, I was watering the plants when Emily walked in, holding a box. "What's that?" I asked. She placed it on the table and opened the flaps. Inside were some old family keepsakes, photo albums, trinkets, even a few birthday cards, stuff she'd found in the attic while looking for her high school yearbooks. We spent the next hour flipping through it all. Photos of beach vacations, Emily's 6th grade science fair, Halloween costumes, family game nights. Nathan was in many of them, smiling like he had the world in his hands. Emily stared at one photo for a long time. It was from her 5th birthday party, Nathan holding her in one arm, me lighting candles on the cake. We both looked so young, so naive. "He really was a good dad," she said quietly, "for a long time." "Yeah," I replied. "He was." That's the hardest part. Grieving someone who's still alive. Someone who was good until they weren't. Someone who helped build your world and then burned it down. "I think I'm ready to forgive him," she said after a pause. I looked at her. "Really?" She nodded. "Not because he deserves it, but because I don't want to keep dragging this anger around." I reached across the table and took her hand. "I'm proud of you." She gave a faint smile. "I think you should forgive him too." I didn't answer right away. Forgiveness is complicated. It's not an instant switch you flip. It's a process. A quiet decision you make over and over until it no longer hurts to do it. "I'm getting there," I finally said. We kept sorting through the box. At the bottom, Emily found a faded birthday card. It was from me to Nathan, dated about 3 years ago. Inside, I'd written, "To the man who makes life lighter, even on the hard days. Thank you for loving me through it all." I stared at the handwriting, feeling like it belonged to another version of myself. A version that still believed love alone could fix everything. Emily handed it to me. I held it for a moment, then tore it neatly in two and dropped it in the trash. Some things don't need to be kept. Later that week, I had lunch with my sister. Over Caesar salads and iced tea, she looked at me and said, "You're glowing." I laughed. "It's probably just the sunlight." "No," she said, "it's peace. You're glowing with peace." And I realized she was right. I wasn't afraid anymore. Not of being alone, not of starting over, not of being unwanted. Because I knew my worth now, and I wasn't going to spend another second explaining it to people who didn't see it. At work, I started volunteering to lead gallery tours. I loved watching people pause in front of a painting, their faces lit with wonder or curiosity. Art has a way of showing you yourself, even when you're not looking. One afternoon, I stayed late to help hang a new exhibit. The artist, a middle-aged woman with wild curls and paint on her shoes, told me, "You look like someone who's lived a story or two." I smiled. "Maybe 1 or 3. She looked at me, then nodded like she understood. "Good. That's what makes life interesting." She was right. I wouldn't have chosen this path. The betrayal, the heartbreak, the long nights of doubt. But it made me interesting. It made me resilient. It made me me. Not long after that, Emily got a call from Sophie. I was in the living room, folding laundry, when she came in holding her phone like it was radioactive. She wants to meet, she said. I froze. Are you going to? I don't know. She paced for a minute, then looked at me. Would it be weird if I said yes? I thought about it. No, I said carefully. It wouldn't be weird, but it's your choice. You don't owe her anything. I think I just want to know why, she said. Why she thought it was okay to step into our life like that. And that's what she did. She met with Sophie at a coffee shop in public with boundaries. She came home afterward and told me everything. She cried a lot, Emily said. Said she didn't realize how serious things were between you and Dad. Thought he was already on his way out. She didn't come to the graduation to be cruel. She just thought it was okay. I said nothing, just listened. She's not who I thought she was, Emily continued. She's scared, alone. And now she has a baby with someone who doesn't know how to stay. I looked at my daughter, my brilliant, emotionally mature daughter, and said, You're stronger than I ever was at your age. She smiled. That's because I had you. And right then, I knew the cycle was broken. Emily wasn't going to repeat my mistakes. She was going to love wisely, speak boldly, and never settle for crumbs. Because she had watched me rise from ashes and learned to do the same. By the time summer came around again, our lives had changed so completely that the past felt like a different life. One I'd visited once, but never planned to return to. We were no longer surviving. We were living. I started taking art classes at the gallery, nothing serious, just a weekly watercolor course for beginners. I hadn't painted since high school, but there was something healing about watching color bleed into paper. It reminded me that beauty doesn't come from control. It comes from letting go. One afternoon, I painted a tiny house with a garden in full bloom. Nothing grand, just a peaceful little home with sunlight pouring through the windows. When I finished, I realized I'd unconsciously painted our house. Not the way it used to be, but the way it felt now, safe, alive, full of light. That same week, I ran into Nathan at the grocery store. I hadn't seen him in months, not since he showed up at Emily's graduation party and left in a storm of embarrassment. His face looked tired, like the past year had aged him twice over. He was holding a half-full basket, staring at a shelf of baby formula. We locked eyes. He gave a stiff nod. Claire. Nathan. Silence. He glanced down at the basket. It's been a rough few months. I didn't offer sympathy, just stood there, letting the silence speak for me. She left, he said, voice barely audible. Sophie, packed up and moved back to her parents. Said she couldn't take the stress anymore. I raised an eyebrow. The stress of being with the man she stole from someone else? He winced. I deserve that. I didn't say it for your benefit. He looked down. I'm trying to be better. I'm seeing someone. A therapist, I mean. That's good, I said simply. You need help. More silence. Then, with a voice that shook, he asked, Do you ever think, maybe we could have fixed it if I'd tried harder, if I hadn't? You didn't just fail me, Nathan. You chose to hurt me, and no amount of therapy changes that. I don't hate you anymore, but I will never let you back in. He nodded slowly, eyes glassy. I understand. And I believe he did. He didn't ask about Emily. He knew better. She had made her stance clear, and she didn't need me to be the messenger. Before I turned to leave, I said one last thing. You had a beautiful life, Nathan, a daughter who adored you, a wife who would have followed you anywhere, and you threw it away for something that didn't last a year. Then I walked away, and it felt like closing a door I didn't realize was still cracked open. Back at home, I told Emily. Did you say everything you needed to? She asked. I did, I said, and I left the rest behind. She smiled. Good. That weekend, I finished the painting and hung it in the hallway. Every time I walked past it, I smiled. Not because it was a masterpiece, but because it wasn't. It was flawed, imperfect, but full of color and warmth, just like our life. In August, we took a trip. Just me and Emily. We went to a little coastal town we used to visit when she was younger. We stayed in a small cottage by the water, ate too much seafood, collected seashells, and fell asleep to the sound of waves. One morning, I woke up early and walked down to the shore. The sun hadn't fully risen yet, and the world felt paused, like I was the only person awake. I stood barefoot in the sand and watched the tide roll in, then back out. In that stillness, something inside me settled. I whispered a soft goodbye. Not to Nathan. To the version of myself who thought she needed him, who stayed too long, who believed being chosen was the same thing as being cherished. She was gone now. In her place stood someone new, someone whole. When I returned to the cottage, Emily was making coffee. She looked up and smiled. "You look different." "I feel different." "Good different. The best kind." Later that day, we wrote down 5 things we wanted to leave behind, and 5 things we wanted to carry forward. Emily's list was full of hope, trust, boundaries, self-worth. Mine was too. Because at the end of it all, this wasn't a story about betrayal. It was a story about becoming. I wasn't just Claire, the woman who was left. I was Claire, the woman who rose, who stood by her daughter, who stood up for herself, who turned the ashes of her marriage into a life that finally felt like hers. It's been over a year now. Sometimes I'll catch a glimpse of my reflection, brushing my teeth, walking past a shop window, stepping out into the morning sun, and I'll pause. Not because I don't recognize myself, but because I do, maybe for the first time in years. There's a calm in my eyes now, not the kind that comes from everything being perfect, but the kind that says, you've been through hell and you didn't let it swallow you. Nathan never reached out again, not after that grocery store conversation. No calls, no emails, not even on Emily's birthday. She didn't cry. She didn't even bring it up. She just looked at her phone that morning, put it down and said, "I'm okay." And she was. Because she'd learned to stop expecting closure from someone who never gave her honesty to begin with. And as for me, I kept building. I started hosting community events at the gallery, small artist showcases, spoken word nights, even an occasional Sunday brunch for women who wanted a place to just exist and exhale. I found myself surrounded by people who valued sincerity, who showed up without hidden motives or broken promises. That's the thing betrayal never tells you. It may break you, but if you let it, it'll also build you. Different, stronger, wiser. The truth is, I don't regret loving Nathan. I don't even regret the years I gave him. Because loving someone fully, even if they don't deserve it, says more about you than it ever does about them. I'm proud of who I was. And I'm even prouder of who I became after. Emily, now 19, is thriving. She's studying psychology, wants to help other people make sense of their pain. When I asked her why, she said, "Because I don't want anyone to feel as alone as I did." That answer both shattered and healed me. She started dating someone recently. His name is Lucas. He's thoughtful, quiet, the kind of boy who listens more than he talks. She brought him over for dinner last week, and I watched the way he looked at her, like she was the only person in the room, the only person that ever mattered. After they left, I sat on the couch for a long time, hand over my heart, and I thought, maybe this is the legacy I leave behind. Not bitterness, not brokenness, but resilience, boundaries, a daughter who knows her worth. That night, I wrote one final letter, but this one wasn't to Nathan. It wasn't even to Emily. It was to you. To the woman who's listening to this, holding her breath because some part of this story sounds like yours. Here's what I need you to hear. You are not stupid for trusting. You are not weak for staying. You are not broken for still loving someone who hurt you. You are human. And you are allowed to rebuild. You don't have to wait for closure. You don't have to be polite. You don't have to explain your pain to people who can't even own theirs. You owe them nothing. But you owe yourself everything. So take that first breath. Cry if you need to. Scream into a pillow. Change your locks. Write that angry letter and then burn it. Sit in the sun. Paint something. Chop your hair off. Leave the dinner table without clearing everyone else's plates. You don't have to become unbreakable. You just have to become you. Because you're more than enough. Always were. Always will be. To Nathan, I don't hate you. I just don't think about you anymore. And that's the piece you can never steal from me. To the old version of me, thank you for holding on when you were breaking. You carried me far enough so I could walk on my own. To you, listening, what did you walk away from? What helped you finally let go? How did you handle it? Share your story in the comments. I promise someone else needs to hear it. And if this resonated, please like, subscribe, and remember, setting boundaries isn't selfish, it's survival. Wherever you are right now, I hope today you feel a little braver, a little lighter, a little more you.